Hello everybody. Today I wanted to give you a short example of how to find the inverse of a function. Okay, so let's just quickly review what that is. Okay, remember that a function, call it f, like a little machine. Okay, and a number comes into the function. That function does something to the number x, and out comes another number y. The inverse of that function is also a little number machine. It takes this number y as the input, and out comes the number that we started with. That's why it's called the inverse of the function. And it has this little notation here, f inverse, f to the minus 1. Okay, and if you guys know your exponents, you remember that, okay, f to the minus 1, that's like 1 over f. Okay, this is the kind of thing that math people do that really annoy other people that are learning math. This does not mean 1 over f. Okay, this just is a symbol which means this function denoted with a minus 1 is just the inverse of this function. It reverses the y and the x. Okay. Now, when can we be sure that this function f has an inverse just like this? Because that might not always be the case. And we use something called the horizontal line test. Basically, the horizontal line test says if I graph my function, let's say my function is a nice line. Okay, it's a nice line. The horizontal line test says that if I draw any horizontal line I want through the graph like that, and I can draw any horizontal line. These lines are kind of horizontal, but you have to pretend a little bit here. Okay, but the horizontal line test says that, okay, if that horizontal line only crosses the function one time and no more than one time, no matter what horizontal line you draw, then this function right here in purple, that function has an inverse. And we say that the function is invertible. Now what about a function that perhaps doesn't have an inverse? Okay, and a good example of a function like that would be a parabola. Here's a parabola. Okay, notice that when I draw my horizontal line, here it crosses in two spots. One right here, another one right here. Okay, so two crossings of the horizontal line for this function, only one crossing of a horizontal line for this function. Okay, so we would say that this function here is not invertible. So the parabola function is not invertible. However, basically any straight line function is invertible. Okay. So let's see what we actually have to do in order to find the inverse of a function. It's really not that hard. Okay, so here I have my function. Okay, it's f of x equals 2x plus 1. You should recognize that as the equation of a line. Okay, so this function will definitely have an inverse. Okay, so here's the procedure. Rewrite this equation right here. Rewrite that equation with y instead of f of x. Easy as that. Step number 2, switch the x and the y. Okay. Step number 3, solve the equation that you get for y. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And then finally, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. Okay, we're actually done. the very last step, replace the y with f inverse of x, which is what we were trying to find up here. Okay? F inverse of x equals x minus 1 over 2. Now, how do I know? How do I know that that really is the inverse of x, the inverse function f? Well, it has to be true that when I take a number like 1, right, and I put it into f of x, what do I get? Okay. Here's my original function. I get 2 times 1 plus 1, I get 3. Well, let's take 3 and put it into f inverse of x and see what I get. Okay, here's f inverse of x, x minus 1 over 2. Well, that's 3 minus 1, which is 2, divided by 2, and I get 1. So the original function converts a 1 into a 3. Here's the original function, converts a 1 into a 3. The inverse function does the opposite. It converts a 3 into a 1. And that's it. That's how to find the inverse of a function.